Black Ops 6 looks awesome. Why can't I stay excited about it?
Scott, I was so buzzing after the conference last night. I thought Black Ops 6, like you said, looks so good, but there was one thing that they failed to announce.
Go on.
When they were showing off the new omnidirectional movement, and that's the fact that Black Ops 6 will need to be entirely online to play any of its modes, including the offline campaign mode, which absolutely sucks. So that means if you got no internet connection or if your internet drops, unlucky. Black Ops 6 is not available for you.
Okay.
And to make matters worse, in my opinion, they said the reason for this was to keep install sizes down. But the install size for Black Ops 6 is 309 gigabytes, Scott Tailfish.
What? 390? What?
309? It sounds like a joke, right? It sounds like a joke. And I'm trying not to over-exaggerate this because I do think Black Ops 6 looks really good.
Yes.
But this idea of it being always online for seemingly no reason, for something as seemingly as daft as texture streaming when you have an install size this big, I just think it's a crazy self-own for a game that otherwise looks like a real return to form.
I tell you what's really, really stupid now as well is that because Call of Duty is on Game Pass and they've said Black Ops 6 is coming to Game Pass, you won't be able to install that if you've got any of the other offerings they're offering you that month.
Yeah.
Like, are they just going to give you just one game a month? Like, I'm half joking. But also, if you're keeping up with Game Pass releases, obviously they give you a smattering of titles every month. This will take up the majority of your hard drive. I get that on Xbox it doesn't sort information, sort data the same way it does on PlayStation. PS4, PS5 both have that thing where you need to have duplicate space allowed,
yes,
so that something can install or update and then it deletes the clone. It's why it always asks for more space than it actually needs. I don't think the Xbox does that, but still freeing up 300 plus gig is ludicrous.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, it's a 1 terabyte console. It barely is, when the max of that is almost essentially double the 300 or 2 and a bit size of that.
Yeah, like, yeah, you have to assume that this is just the space you need and the actual install will be much less than this, especially if they're talking about, you know, the texture streaming and always online offsetting that idea. But it still feels like there's a sort of arms race when it comes to Call of Duty and Warzone in terms of it wanting to monopolize whatever machine you're playing it on. Because it seems to download everything whether you want it or not. You can individually go in on the PlayStation, for instance, and siphon off the multiplayer packs or the campaign packs or Spec Ops or whatever it is to bring that down, but it doesn't bring it down by much.
No.
Especially when you need to have the compatibility of packs for certain things to play a certain mode. It's a confusing mess of admin, Scott, and I just think it kind of puts people off.
I honestly, man, like, I would love to just have the multiplayer of Call of Duty installed. Like, I watched the Black Ops 6 stuff on Sunday night and I was like, man, I could go for some Call of Duty. I can't get it. I'd have to wipe out my entire PS5 or my Xbox's library to just download Modern Warfare and install just that. Even though, like Josh says, they give you the opportunity to siphon stuff off, you still seem to have way more parts of it installed, whether it's compatibility packs or whatever it is, to then free up the overall space to install the multiplayer, to then try and shave it back down again to keep multiplayer. But then you're probably going to need the compatibility packs anyway because of just the way that these different parts of the install talk to each other. I find the whole thing to be unbelievably off-putting, to the point where I gave up playing Call of Duty. I'd love to keep playing, but I just can't keep it installed unless I keep either my entire console free or I keep having an FAQ nearby to keep up with how the hell to even run the thing.
I think it's just...
I hate it.
It's yeah, 100%, because it becomes the game on your console, doesn't it? It becomes the one thing that you can't delete. And if you do delete, you know it's going to be a nightmare to get back because you have to download so many gigabytes of data and then all of the updates on top of that. It makes it a nightmare, like you said. I just think overall, the excuse of it being for the install size, for it being always online, is a bit strange, especially when it needing to always be online is such a needless thing, I think, especially when it comes to the campaign. If it was a completely online experience, I maybe understand, but it's another way I think the franchise just kind of like ignores or minimizes campaign mode.
Right.
It already sort of sells that extra these days, because if you buy the fanciest version of the game over the past few years, you've been able to access that campaign early, and it's kind of like it's treated like a pre-order extra at times. It's like something that you get with your overall bundle, but we know you're not going to it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if you have to be always online because you're not really going to play the campaign, are you? Stuff like that. It's just why?
We'll get to some positives. Obviously, there
Yes.
is the omnidirectional leaping and things like that. It just is an interesting beat to be like, okay, we need a next gen Call of Duty, but still half of the generation right now, half of the amount of people playing games still play on Xbox One and on PS4. So we need to make sure that there's a version of the game that then still works for the older consoles, but we're still trying to push everything to make sure it's worth the new premium price point, etc. And then we have a version that's coming to Game Pass, so it's like we need to make sure it all works on there. So somewhere in there, the solution seems to be this streaming texture thing, which that just gives me Crackdown 3 vibes of trying to say things are cloud powered or whatever it
The
is.
thing is, though, sorry to interrupt, but it's not like this is the first Call of Duty game with streaming textures.
Right.
You have had that option on previous games. The past few, especially Warzone, you can turn that on and off in the menu. So why suddenly this time around has that meant that everything has to be online when you had this option in there? Maybe you're just forcing it. Maybe you're making it always on, but why? Why, Activision? Why?
That makes me think that they're going to force it on for the new gen systems, and then maybe you'll get a slightly de-res, slightly uglier version of the game on past gen systems or whatever it is. But the main problem just seems to be not optimizing the data file sizes. Like that's just one thing that we've had for years now, where it's obviously become a meme. It's become a talking point that a standard Call of Duty install size is a couple of 100 gig. But how much bigger can we go? Like it's not like the console sizes are 10 terabytes or whatever it is, where you're not really noticing that you're installing this. This is an endeavor to install in the first place. And then there is the always online thing, which I think that's a whole discussion in itself. Like most people have internet at this point, obviously broadband connections, but it does differ based on location. But there is also the chance of it going down. My internet goes down all the time. Virgin Media, you pretty much suck. And so if that then costs me progress on a supposedly offline campaign, that's just a big old problem.
I will say as well, I think the primary issue with it being entirely online isn't so much in the short term. It's not so much about your internet going down and losing a bit of progress in the campaign mode. It's that the eventual reality that this game won't be playable if they turn the servers off or anything like that, or if you don't have access to internet. You'll never, once they do that in 30 years time or whatever, and I know who cares about 30 years time? We could all be gone in 30 years time. But in an era where Microsoft is so adamant about game preservation, they even mentioned it in their showcase,
Whilst
right?
announcing a digital console.
To then do this, which will ultimately make the game entirely obsolete in a few decades' time. It's not a great look, especially when we're in an era where the likes of Ubisoft are saying, hey, people have got to get used to not owning the games they buy. And it's like, why have we got to get used to it, Ubisoft?
My conspiratorial brain in this regard goes to the idea of, say, in 30 years' time, or however long you want to project the idea of Xbox's worth potentially being on the line at some point, that they then get to go into those negotiations saying, well, if you cut us off, you're going to lose X amount of players. That's where my mind goes in regards to making sure that people are locked to an always online model. But let's talk about positive stuff. God damn it.
Can I throw one middling thing in? Because there is one more controversial thing before we get into the outright positive things about this game. I'm hype on this because they have confirmed that the skins and accessories and in-game purchases that you bought in Warzone,
not me,
and not you, me, the Tracer rounds and Nicki Minaj skins that I bought in Modern Warfare 2, in Modern Warfare 3, they're not going to transfer over to Black Ops 6. It might still, probably will transfer over in Warzone. I don't think they've clarified that, but for the core MP, you're not going to have those Nicki Minaj skins running around in multiplayer. And truthfully, I think that's fine. I thought they did a good job of carrying that stuff on from Modern Warfare 2 to Modern Warfare 3 because it's the same engine, it's a continuation. But I like that the games get to have a nice split these days. They carried everything on from Modern Warfare 2019 to Cold War, and it just felt, for me personally, I thought it was a complete mismatch of styles and tones, and it was just like, it felt bloated by the end of it, because especially when you got to Warzone, you had all of these skins, but more importantly, all of these weapons that were just lumped in, and it was just like this amorphous thing. Whereas I do like that Black Ops 6, at least at launch, gets to be its own thing for a bit and doesn't have the baggage of Modern Warfare, because those games aren't going to go away. It's not like they're shutting the servers down and that they're taking away your purchases. You can still use all that stuff in Warzone and in those games, but I like that this gets to be, at least for a little bit, its own thing with its own aesthetic and in its own skins. I think that's good.
As long as they don't sell you the same thing back again, which is where my mind goes.
Yes.
You mentioning the whole amorphous blob of IP is like, because I haven't been able to play Call of Duty for like a year now or so, and I say haven't because I'm not prepared to do the data stuff, but from the outside looking in, I see the Gundam skins, I see the King Kong skins, I see the Nicki Minaj stuff, and it's a mess. Like, it feels like them chasing Fortnite or chasing the idea of meshing everything together. And so something that I guess would restore that identity is cool in that context, because Call of Duty just looks like a mess to me. Third person Gundam finishes in my Call of Duty, that's not... What are we doing?
I love it.
Where's my Demon Slayer DLC? But still, like you said, there's a way to maintain the identity and maybe get back to why people bought into Call of Duty in the first place, and do that. My bugbear would be if they try and sell you the same thing twice.
100%, yeah, they cannot do that. Please do not do that. I don't want to buy Ash Williams again. I don't want to buy... I will, I know. That's the issue, right? Yeah, I don't want to buy the same weed skin that they've done about 5 times now for different versions of the game, where it's just a ghillie suit, but it's like they do it for like $4.20 or something. I don't know. Activision can monetize everything in the world. The point is, they are guilty of doing this, Scott.
Yes.
But I don't think they'll do like outright sell you the Nicki Minaj skin or the Snoop Dogg skin again. It would be like a slightly tweaked version, or just something with a new name when it comes to the more Milsim skins. They definitely will do that. But what were we going to say before I move on?
No, just that I'm curious how far they can get away with this over and over again. But it seems like they've already done it a handful of times. I'm also curious how much the average Call of Duty player likes the look of COD as it is at the minute, where you can see a Gundam skin fighting a mini version of King Kong or whatever the hell it is. I don't know what we're doing anymore. I don't know what this reality is.
I like it, but I also like the aesthetic that Black Ops 6 is going for.
Yes.
I normally don't towards Treyarch's aesthetics or art design. I often find them a little bit too arcadey for my liking. But Black Ops 6, for me personally, split the difference really nicely, where it felt closer to Black Ops 1's aesthetic, where it had that sort of real-world grounding. So to get that at launch and not have it be invaded with Gundam skins or whatever, I think that is ultimately a win. And I don't think we need all of these games to be as interconnected as they are. I think it's okay to have COD as a platform and maybe Warzone connecting everything, but the individual games have their own distinct identities.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's all right.
Totally.
What do you think? I don't know.
They need to figure that out as well, in terms of like the Call of Duty HQ and plugging things into it, and like this new era for Call of Duty that's messed up in the Xbox era, and trying to make it all work for Game Pass and the wider audience, etc. Good stuff, though.
Come on, there is something.
They've got the Max Payne 3 dives in there.
Yes, they do, Scott.
It's been 12 years.
Omnidirectional movement is a thing I did not know I needed, but now I don't think I can live without, and I'm not even played the game. I just think that's going to freshen it up so much. Not Black Ops, Battlefield 5 actually had a version of it. Not quite as robust, it doesn't seem, but especially when it comes to diving and being prone, that idea of you getting thrown around all over the place, and it was really well implemented, I thought. This seems like it's taking that one step further, and I just think it's going to add so much to the movement of COD. COD still feels great now, but make it less static, give it you more dynamism without having to resort to jetpacks or whatever it is. And I just think... I feel like that hasn't really been done in a multiplayer shooter that I can recall in a long time, where it's been this much of the focus.
Well, that whole thing of like, you can sprint sideways or sprint backwards, like that's kind of fun. And bringing the dives and stuff in, like that idea of giving you more default movement options. Like Call of Duty, I could be wrong, but I don't feel like, other than the mantling on the environment thing in 2019's Modern Warfare, the only other time they added a base movement thing was Advanced Warfare, where you could double click the stick to jet boost in a different direction.
Yeah.
And obviously that didn't stick around. I don't even think they had it in Infinite Warfare, but it was in Advanced.
They had it in Advanced, Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare.
Right,
yes.
okay. But still, that idea of like, okay, we're actually going to take the risk and give you like a new movement option from the beginning that everybody has access to. I like the way of, or the idea of that shaking up what it feels like to play a Call of Duty this many years in. Titanfall 2 is still my favorite FPS of all time, and that has a whole bunch of, like, obviously the grappling hook and the really momentous heavy slide and things like that. I thought this looked really cool. I need to see more of it. The first time I watched the trailer, I actually knocked it off because I was like, okay, it's more COD, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they detailed the directional diving in a separate clip that I saw doing the rounds on social media. So I went back in, and my own love of Max Payne 3 made me stick around. So I'm up for them doing something a little bit different with this.
And I like them focusing on movement, because they did do that with Modern Warfare 3, but it was so much more granular. Scott, it was like, we're reintroducing the slide cancel, which will be meaningless to like the most casual of fans out there who are like, what is a slide cancel? How am I supposed to do that? But whereas here it seems way more robust. almost. It's like, right, we're going to focus on movement again, but we're not making iterative tweaks. We're introducing a whole new system. I think it looks really sick. To be honest, I wasn't expecting much because, like I said, Treyarch really isn't my developer when it comes to Call of Duty. And to be honest, MW3 was such a hack job and so soulless from Activision. I thought that I of course would have played the new one, but I didn't expect to be excited for it. But when this trailer was playing and when they were doing the deep dive in, I was sitting forward in my chair like, ooh, maybe I'm in. Maybe this could be good, and I want it to be good because it's the first time in ages that Treyarch have had like a full development cycle. I think they've had 4 years on this.
Right.
So I expect big things for that time investment because every other Call of Duty over the past 3 years or whatever it is has been like on fire developmental-wise, and they've had a bunch of teams on it. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
It's so crazy that a genuine positive is that they were allowed to make it.
I know.
As opposed to this, like you said, the weird patchwork quilt approach that everything else has had, and like the weird trend chasing stuff the likes of Black Ops 4 or just throwing together Modern Warfare 3 to try and keep up that annual release. A mixed bag, but hopefully positive in the end.